to Career Uprising. I'm your host and professional career coach, Lorraine Rise. Join me as I guide you through an amazing journey of self-discovery and empowerment. If you are looking for work, changing careers, or stuck in a toxic job, then this is the show for you. I offer both practical and spiritual guidance to help you up-level and advance your career. Let's start the uprising. Hey everyone, you are listening to episode 112, Staying Grounded in Turbulent Times with Doyle Ward. Welcome everyone. 2022 is here, whether you're ready for it or not. We're in a new year, my favorite time of year, and I am doing well. I hope you are too. I hope you're staying healthy and strong and that everyone in your family is doing well. I know there's so many cases of COVID going around right now. It's everywhere, unfortunately. So hopefully wherever you're listening, you're feeling well and doing well. So today I am so excited. I am going to bring on again, my good friend and a former host here on Inflow Radio with his own show. His name is Doyle Ward. You might recognize him. He has the distinction of being the first guest that I've brought onto this show twice. So if you're not familiar with Doyle, he is a gifted medium and life coach, and he is someone that I have personally called upon myself for readings and for guidance for myself and my family whenever we need it. I just love and trust him so implicitly. He's such a good soul, and I just cannot wait to have another conversation with him today. So, it started back in 2019. It was pre-pandemic. I can't believe it. When I had Doyle on first for episode 40, and now here I am at 112 in my fourth year. I'm so excited. And we talked in the first show about a really different topic. We talked more about kind of non-traditional career paths and starting a business and kind of starting a business from a spiritual and intuitive perspective, something both him and I know very well. We're both coaches, but in kind of different respects. And we have our own self-created careers that we're in that are immensely fulfilling. And I would really love for you to go back when you get a chance to episode 40 and listen to that show with Doyle. I think it's called How to Start a Thriving Business. And it's going to be really different than today's show. We're going to really tackle even bigger topic today. I really want to talk about what's going on in the world. And not just that, but it's all here, right? These turbulent times that we're in, regardless of why it's all happening, we're in really, really difficult and dark times right now. And I want to come at it from a very uplifting perspective. And I think Doyle is the perfect person to talk about using our intuition, staying grounded, staying focused and positive towards our goals. I think we all need that right now because there's so much noise out there. And so much of it is lies and distractions. And I think we need to really look inward today and stay grounded in what matters and our own personal truth. And that is my goal for today, is to have a really good conversation around that. And I'd love to bring in Doyle and his perspective and just a little bit of his background too, in case you guys didn't listen to the first episode. So Doyle spent about 25 years in the corporate world before doing what he's doing today. He was a general manager for a major hotel. He's hired, trained, coached, and mentored so many employees. He knows the business world, but he also knows kind of the bigger picture and more spiritual side of things as well. A little bit of a blend of that and the practical, which is why he's such a good fit for my show, because that's really the approach that I take. But his practice and his website is Blissful Quest. So I'll let him tell you more about that at the end of the show, how you can connect with him. But for now, welcome back to the show, Doyle.
Good morning, and thank you for having me back. I can't believe I'm the first person to come back twice. That's
to come
an
back
honor.
Again. Yeah, for a second show. You are.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me back. I'm super excited to talk about this topic today too.
Yeah, so necessary. It's really been on my mind. And even, as somebody who, and I'm sure you can relate to this, as somebody who coaches and teaches other people, that doesn't mean we have it all figured out 100% ourselves, right? I still have to be mindful of my input and, what am I listening to? Am I getting distracted? Am I getting caught up in negativity? I think I do a pretty good job, but I can improve as well. So this is a conversation for everybody, right? To take a pause and go, it's a new year. Am I staying focused? Am I staying grounded? What is going on in the world? What's going on inside of me? I think we all just have to do that. And I think you're just a great person because you approach everything from such a grounded, intuitive place. But anyway, let's just kind of start broadly a little bit. The world has changed tremendously, obviously, since you and I spoke about 2.5 years ago. And I would just love your perspective, as somebody who relies on your intuition and you have an amazing connection to the divine that I have just witnessed your gifts and your talents so many times. And I would love for you to just kind of share what is going on maybe in the world and what your perspective is on the energy of the world right now.
Yeah, boy, a lot has changed. That is true. I guess my perspective on the world starts from today forward. Okay. We all know what's happened the last 2 years, in the world and in our individual lives. What I'm focused on right now is the energy, or I don't want to be too metaphysical here, but the consciousness, I think, of all of us right now. And for me, I feel like we are moving into a more hopeful time. I actually feel really, really positive about today forward. I think that we're going to see some things coming up in this next couple of months or so, where we're finding that more and more people are actually coming together rather than remaining separate, which is what we've seen in the past 2 years. So I feel a lot more hopeful about things that are coming up. I think that we're all a little bit tired of being just in the pandemic mentality, but I think we're also tired of fighting each other too. And so what's happening is, I think, in my opinion, we're finding that it's not working to constantly be angry at the world and each other. And it's time to kind of get down to brass tacks, talk about what's really happening and find a way to move forward. And that's why I feel really confident about my hopeful outlook this year, because I really do think people are ready to find a way forward. And so the other thing that I'll mention also is there's a continuing trend this year in the consciousness of a lot of the people that I'm working with that I saw that started last year, which totally applies to the folks I think who might listen to your program. And that's where people are really having to identify now what is actually important to them in their lives. And that includes career, right? We've had a lot of people changing careers or leaving completely at least last year for sure. I think that's going to continue, but it's going to be more than just career. It's going to be about really identifying just what I said. What is important in our lives? What matters? Who are the people that matter? What are the things that we're doing that matter? And in my coaching practice, one of the things that I'm seeing this year already right now are people coming in who are questioning not only what's important to them, but also questioning their coping skills, or what I'll call overindulgent habits, right? So people are starting to wake up, I think, and say, okay, this is the new world we're in. How do I move forward, and how do I get a handle on this?
Mm-hmm. I love that. Yes, I did one of my shows I just did a few weeks ago. I think it was my last one for this year. I called it "The World is Changing. Are you?" And I did that on purpose because it's like, come on, like you can't deny that everything is changing. That means you individually have to change as well. Going forward, it's either the world's going to force you or you're going to do it by choice. But we're all, I think, individually and collectively at the same time waking up. I love that perspective. And one thing I want to jump in and confirm that trend that you just said about everybody is reevaluating their priorities, their values, what's important to them. I cannot emphasize how true that is enough, because when I do my discovery calls with, prospects who are interested in my program, like I had a lady just the other day, she said, I can't put my finger on it. I don't know why. Nothing's wrong at my job, but I just feel like it doesn't suit me anymore. I just feel like I need to reevaluate everything. And she couldn't, point to anything specific. And I said, that is what everybody is doing. I've spoken to so many people who have said, I don't know why, but I just feel like I need to reevaluate everything. I need to dig deeper. I need to realign to something else. And I think that's if you would agree, that's our intuition. Sometimes when we can't even put our finger on why, we just know. It's not logical sometimes. It's not specific. It's not tangible, but it's so real. And it's just a feeling. And we can talk more about that in a minute on intuition. I want to go there, but I just wanted to confirm that it's so synchronistic that you said that, because everyone is saying that to me too, that they're, basically everything's up for renegotiation. Everything is up for reevaluation, personally, professionally, health, everything. So it sounds like you're seeing that too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one other thing that might be helpful, right? We want to take a positive approach always. Okay. And we'll talk about that too, hopefully, about how to do that in a minute. But there is one other note that I want to make about moving forward from my own personal intuitive standpoint. And that is, I think, and everybody can probably see this in the world, there's still going to be a lot of frustration, a lot of anger. There's still going to be a lot of impatience and a feeling of rushing around, being hurried all the time. And that's important to know, especially for people who are wanting to make changes in their lives, especially related to interviewing and careers, because those people that are interviewing are also going to be frustrated. They're going to be short on time. They're going to be impatient. And it's helpful to know that going in so you can have a strategy on how to, move forward in our community where people are still sort of pent up and frustrated about things. So that's not a negative thing. It's a realistic thing. And, that's something that we can plan for. That's something we can adapt to and anticipate as well.
Yes, I would agree. And I have echoed that in recent episodes on this show as well. And I have said, a lot of times look back at your life. I think that a lot of people see this trend right before things get better, they tend to get worse, right? Because things are brought to the surface that we need to address and fix. And that part is painful, but we have to do that in order to heal. And that is what I believe is happening globally right now, is that everything is being pushed to the surface that doesn't work, that doesn't align, that has always been there, but maybe we've denied it or haven't seen it, different greed and corruption and lies, but all of that, even for our own life, a job that's no longer working, a relationship that's no longer working, all of that we can't ignore. So it looks like things are getting worse, but in the bigger picture, they're getting better because we are addressing these things and facing them and not pushing them away and denying them and not doing anything about them. So it's a little bit of a contrast or a juxtaposition there, but I would agree with you. There is more pain and more difficulty coming, but in the end, it's all for a better life for ourselves and a better world that we're creating. So it's a good thing. So we're on the same page, Doyle. That's good. That's good. Well, so, one of the things too that I think makes life today unique and challenging is how, digital and fast paced and hyper connected we are. I mean, so many of us, and I can say I've been guilty of this, we roll out of bed, or before we even get out of bed, the first thing we touch is the button on a screen. I mean, that's just a reality for a lot of people. But I think that what we really need is a return to our inner truth and our intuition. And you do a lot of work around that. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about what role can intuition play in this hyper-connected and crazy digital stressful world? What are some good tips and practices, and what are you seeing trends with clients around developing this and using it in today's world?
Yeah. Well, so first let's talk about what intuition is, right?
Sure.
Intuition is that inner voice, that small, sometimes very subtle voice in our gut or in our minds that speaks to us, that's giving us guidance, that's saying, "Hey, do this or don't do that, or this person's okay, that person's not." Like, we all have intuition, right? It's not some extraordinary skill; it's ordinary. We all have it. It's that inner voice that really does know what we need, okay? But here's what I'm going to tell you. Intuition is not found in the outward world of being hyper-connected. That absolutely kills. It kills intuition.
I agree.
And so, yes, you're right. With the first thing, we do, we wake up, we touch a screen to get going, to turn off the alarm, that kind of thing, and we get moving. Well, the more we get wrapped up in screens and things like media and all of these sort of distracting pieces that we feel are so important, but really, what are they doing for us? Not much in the way of happiness or self-growth, or definitely not doing much for us in the way of connecting with our intuition. So where is intuition found then? Well, it's found in calmness, or at least a place of quiet. It doesn't even have to be calm, just a little bit quiet. We can find it there. And I'll tell you where else we can find intuition: in creativity. Right? So when we are calm, when we are having a moment of peace or quiet, or when we're creative, man, that's when our intuition can speak to us. That's when we can find the answers to those big puzzling questions that are on our mind. What do I do next? How do I move ahead in my career? Do I change jobs? What do I do to improve my relationship? How do I help my family? That kind of stuff. We can find those answers or clues to where those answers lie by listening to our own intuition. But we're not going to find it constantly glued to, our phones and our screens and that kind of thing. We have to step away from it. So what I'm seeing working with clients is there's a trend for people who really do want to achieve some goals and get some things done in their lives. There's a trend to set some boundaries around screen time and media consumption. And the way that we work with that, because it's impossible not to have your screen, right? I mean, you have to have your phone, you have to have your things to do your business and that kind of stuff. You have to be connected to the world. However, what I do is I teach people how to take very short, quiet, or calmness breaks throughout their day in order to check in with their intuition. And then I also help people find a way to get back in touch with their creative side, something that sparks, some inspiration for people, whether it's, people are creative in a million different ways, right? It could be art, it could be music, it could be business. People are very creative in business. It can be writing, reading, something that takes us back into ourselves, where we have a moment of peace in our minds. Because intuition is always present. It's not that it doesn't work, but it is a matter of paying attention to it. And we just can't do that in a noisy world.
I absolutely agree. And I think one of the things too, that at least that I have learned, is that you have these moments of calm and quiet and you meditate. And I have learned, I don't know what you think about this, but to not expect an answer to like hit me over the head immediately, like in that moment when I'm meditating. What happens, or when I'm having quiet time, what happens to me is I'll have that quiet time. Nothing happens, but later, it's delayed, later that day, or even the next day, I will suddenly get a flash of inspiration about something, or an answer to a question, or an idea or something. I think that there is a delay. Sometimes we get impatient for some, lightning to strike and God to hit us over the head, with the solution. And it comes for me later, but we don't have to learn to kind of connect those two things, that it's the time you spent now, quiet and calm and relaxing, what may pay off in the next day or so when something comes. It's not always instantaneous. So I have found that. I don't know what you think about that, but I think that it's a matter of having that daily routine in there. And even if you feel like nothing came from it, do it anyway. Just make it a consistent habit to have that quiet time or have that creativity time in there, and you will notice a trend of more peace or more ideas or solutions and things like that coming to you in general, rather than always a burst of inspiration. I always just want my answers like clear and up front right away, but I have learned that they do come, but you just need to stay committed to the practice, if that makes sense. But I would agree with you very much that the quiet time has been crazy. For me, I am such a person who I'm very verbal. I talk for a living. So I tend to talk continuously in my head, and I have this voice in my head, and other people do. And I have really been working on quieting that, because I have learned that I can't receive any information if I'm constantly chattering in my head. So I make a point throughout the day to just quiet the thoughts, stop planning for the day or whatever, replaying yesterday's events, and just be quiet. Even just for a few minutes goes a long way. So that's kind of what I do. But yeah, I love those tips that you shared.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the thing that you mentioned that is so important is, yes, you can meditate, right? And take some time to do, like, I don't know, if you have the luxury of time to do some kind of a 20-minute meditation or something. What I train people to do, and myself, are much shorter, a couple of minutes. Like, just get up from your computer and walk away for a minute. Go outside for a second, take a big deep breath, look up at the sky, then come back in and do it again. And you're right about intuition. You ask a question, or you pose, an idea to it, and it may not come immediately. So what happens is, the way intuition works is it has to be directed, and then we have to pay attention to it. So we have to direct it. We have to ask a question or give it something to focus on. Then we have to take a break. In other words, go back into our lives, whatever, and be willing to listen for the answer, which is what you're saying. You may ask today and you get a hit tomorrow. That can happen. Now, one other tip that I'll give you is you can also give your intuition a time frame. So, for example, if you have a question today, you can say, okay, by this time tomorrow, I want a sign. I want the answer. I want to hit on it. And then your job at that point is to simply pay attention to what comes to you. Like, you have to be aware of it. You have to remind yourself, oh yeah, did I get a sign today? Mm-hmm. Anyway.
See, and I agree. And that's why I'm such a big fan of writing things down. So I'll share one of my personal practices, especially as I just said, as somebody who's always thinking and having conversations in her mind like a crazy person. My husband was I want to talk to myself, just because I'm constantly processing like a hamster wheel going in my brain. But what I've learned is that if I write it down, I keep a little journal by my bed. And anytime I feel like I've got things on my mind, all I do is I grab that little notebook and I write it down. I don't try to solve it. I just get it out of my brain and onto paper. And I tell myself, okay, there it is. It's on paper. I'm not going to forget about it. I'll come back to it later and just get it out. And sometimes it's one thing. Sometimes I'll just write 5 or 6 things. I'll just sit down and write everything that's been on my mind for the last few days that I've been thinking about. I just put it on paper, let it go out of my brain. And I have found, one, I instantly feel better because it's not kept up in my mind. I've released it and put it somewhere else where I can revisit it at any time if I need to. So just getting it on paper for me, but also then I can come back a couple days later and look at those things that were bothering me last week And sure enough, a lot of them are gone. A lot of them have been resolved, or they're just not as important, or I just feel differently about them now. I think that, to your point, being able to look for a sign or look for the answer, writing it down so you can come back and see it later and say, did this get resolved or did I get an answer, is really helpful. So I'm just sharing that's my practice, is I keep a notebook in my bed. Anytime I feel overwhelmed or thoughts, I just put them on paper and then I tuck them away and come back and see how I feel in a day or two. And it's almost always better afterwards. It's just kind of like a purging and cleansing things out of my brain. So I don't know if that's something that, kind of goes along with what you were saying, but I feel like that's one way, for people like me who have an active brain that won't shut up.
Yeah. Well, I have the same kind of brain and I talk to myself all the time.
Okay.
So people think I'm crazy too, but I do the same thing. I just did it this morning. I made a long list of things that are on my mind that I need to either focus on or just get out of my brain so that I can, be in the world today. So I do the very same thing. Okay. You and I are way too alike here.
Yeah. I had time just to take I don't know, like a week ago, I just felt like writing. I grabbed my notebook and I literally said, but anything that has been on my mind for the last week or so, just write it out. And I wrote out like 10 things that I had been worrying about or thinking about. I wrote them all out. And then I came back to it a few days later and I was like, oh my God, like I'm really not that worried. Like these things are fine. They've either fixed themselves or somehow it's fine. But I think it's important to get it out because I get anxiety when I have too many things that I think I have to remember in my brain. That's just not a safe place to keep information. For me, not a safe place at all. So I would try, if somebody hasn't tried it and you're listening, please try writing things down and try journaling. I do it for the whole year. I mean, I have a vision for myself each year that I write out, my 2022 vision, my 2021 vision for myself, and I write out all my accomplishments and things I want to achieve. I actually peeked at it again this morning before I got on the show. So writing to me is therapeutic, even if I don't feel like I'm writing a solution out, just writing the thing that's bothering me. And maybe that's my form of intuition and creativity is to let thoughts come through me in writing, because I'm such a communicative person. So you got to find what works for you. Definitely. Well, so any other, final tips or anything that you would give to people in, today's world, just to stay grounded, to manage our stress, develop our intuition, any final, tips or practices, or whether it's something that's worked for your clients or for you that you want to leave people with?
Yeah. Okay. So we want to always probably try to take a positive approach to what's happening in the world and our lives moving forward, right? When we take a positive approach, then we can set goals and that kind of thing. So I have 2 tips that I want to leave you with. One is stop trying to be positive. Just cut it out already. Like, give it a rest, okay? It doesn't really work. But here's what does work. It doesn't mean we're not going to be positive, but stop trying to be positive. That's the issue. The world is a trying place, and we've all been through a lot. And the reality is that sometimes we feel bad. We don't feel good, and we don't feel positive. So here's what I recommend. Acknowledge what you're feeling. If you feel bad, you feel bad. If you're angry, you're angry. If you're, mad or sad, then that's the reality of it. Don't try to be positive. Just acknowledge where you are. Then the next part is to express it. Talk to somebody about it. Reach out, journal about it. Find a safe way, a helpful way to express what you're feeling. Maybe you just need to sit down and take a break and be angry and frustrated for a minute and walk it off, and then come back. So acknowledge where you are, express it in a safe, helpful way. And the final piece is then you can move on and take a positive approach to move forward next. But we can't really be positive if we're not being authentic about what we're feeling. So acknowledge where you are, express it, then you can move on and take a positive approach to life. The other thing I'll leave you with is goals, okay? We make all kinds of goals. We set all kinds of ideas and benchmarks for ourselves. And I think what you'll find is that goals are great, but they are nothing without an intention behind them. right? If there's no intention behind those goals that we really buy into, then there's no achievement at the end of the day. We don't achieve the goals that we don't have any energy for. So when I work with clients on their goals, I'm not really working on goals. I'm working on, well, what is the energy behind it? What is the intention? So you want to change careers. Why? For what reason? What is the end goal? Well, is it more money? Because that's totally valid. Or do you want to feel better about yourself? Do you want to feel more fulfilled? Do you want to be in a healthier environment? Like, why? What's the why behind what you're doing? What is the intention? Once we understand that, then we can set goals that are appropriate to help you achieve it. Because oftentimes, Lorena, I'm sure you've heard this before from people. I know I'm guilty of it. I spent the first half of my life in the corporate world setting goals based on what everybody else wanted me to do, what their intentions were, what I should do. But guess what? At the end of the day, I achieved some of those goals, but I wasn't happy because I didn't want to do it. That wasn't my ultimate intention. I just didn't, I was trying to do what everybody wanted me to do, what I should do, rather than what my heart or my intuition wanted to do. And so I changed careers, which has been the best thing I've ever done in my life. And so I know that if I can do it, anybody can do it. We just have to get to the real, the crux of the matter, which is the intention behind why you're setting those goals.
I love that. And I like that you kind of broke it down into 3 steps. I think that's helpful for people. And I will just reiterate really quick. I completely agree with you, Doyle, that one of the biggest mistakes that people make is trying to be happy all the time, or having this expectation that life is about being happy all the time. And it's not. And that pursuit of constant happiness actually can put you in a state of resistance, to where you're resisting what is actually happening and trying to force yourself to be happy through it. But that actually makes you more unhappy when you do it, because like you said, you're not fully processing what's happening, and you're in a state of resistance rather than a state of acceptance. And I think that happiness comes from being in a state of acceptance with what is going on in life, with the things that we cannot change, and then seizing control of the things that we can change. So I think that is a really important thing, because I think we're kind of taught, or we grow up thinking, it's all about the pursuit of happiness. And it is, but how we get there is not what we think, not by forcing ourselves to feel a certain way, but allowing feelings to pass through us and allowing ourselves times of sadness and discomfort and uncertainty. Happiness, I think, actually comes from allowing some unhappiness in, if that makes sense. It sounds
absolutely
like it doesn't, but that's actually how you can be happy, is to allow yourself to not always be happy all the time. And that's okay. So I think you made a great point there, but tell us, we need to wrap things up. So tell our listeners a little bit more about you. What do you do in your coaching practice? Also, I know you do, I think you do hypnosis, you do some grief therapy or healing. There's a lot to what you do. So tell me more about your own practice and how people can connect with you.
Yeah, so I do all the things you just said. I have found...
I know you very well.
I found that in coaching folks, myself included, to move forward, to have a more, fulfilled life, that sometimes, there are things that get in the way of that, things that we need to work through. And so I do a little bit of grief work, which you can learn more about on my website. And then I primarily work as a life coach. I help people, make their dreams come true. And so, I have lots of different skills that I use to help folks move through stuck places to get to what they really want, whether it's a new job. But most of the time, the people that come to me are looking for things like they want to feel happier. They want to have a better relationship. They want to feel better about their health and that kind of thing. And so I help people not only identify what their goal or their dream or their intention is behind it, but I help them learn how to think about it. So I never tell people what to think, but I teach people how to think about their lives. And then that gives them the ability to make a plan to move forward. So anyway, you can find out more about my approach on my website and the other things that I do at blissfulquests.com. That's BLISSFULQUESTS.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming back. And this is a great message to kick off the new year and another year of a pandemic, most likely. So I think it's really important that we remember to stay grounded and to use our intuition and turn off our devices when we can. And I just really appreciate you coming back on and sharing this message. Like I said, I think you're the perfect person to really help people through that. And I hope that people will consider going to your website and utilizing you as I have done myself. Absolutely. So thank you. Happy New Year to you, Doyle. And I'm so glad you could come back.
Well, Happy New Year to you, and thank you. Really, it's an honor to be here with you. And, I just want us all to get into the energy of a more hopeful spirit this year. I really do think we have a lot to look forward to. Yes, I know that we're still going to have pandemic and, a lot of difficulties, but I think it's about the spirit of cooperation. And so wherever we can, let's do things together. Let's move forward together.
Love it. Let's end with that. That's perfect. That sums it up.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you guys so much for listening. I've got plenty more shows coming up. I'm doing about every other week. So check iTunes or Spotify or my website on Mondays to look for new shows. There'll be more guests and probably after this, a couple solo episodes as well. And we'll get into some specific, career and job search topics over the next couple of weeks. So definitely stay tuned and listen. And I'll talk to you guys soon. That's it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening. If you like what you heard today, please consider giving the show a positive review on iTunes. It would mean a lot to me, and it would help to spread the word so that others can learn about the show. Thanks again for tuning in, and I can't wait to connect with you again next time on Career Uprising.
This show is brought to you by InflowRadio.com, the best curated talk radio network for personal development, wellness, spirituality, and conscious business.